It's been a while, but we are back with episode 26 of the Gold and Blue Breakdown Show. I'm Coos, along with my co-host Jonathan Martin, and we're here to talk a little bit of West Virginia Mountaineer football, and we will also throw in a little West Virginia Mountaineer hoops as March Madness is getting closer and closer, and we're hoping this West Virginia men's team can get in there. But we will talk about that later in the show. Jonathan, what's been up, man?
Coos, it is. It's good to be back. Yeah, it's been a couple weeks. There's this little thing called life that
That's right.
happens,
Yep.
and we're both busy, full-time jobs. I talk about it some, but for those that don't know, I've got a daughter. She's a senior in high school and wrapping up her sports career, and so that's kind of pulled me away. And we try not to record during basketball games. West Virginia's hoop schedule's kind of thrown that off for us a couple weeks here too. So. But yeah, it's good to be back. It's really good.
Yep. And we had, it's all season, so sometimes it's good to take a couple weeks off and catch your breath. And when we do come back, it gives us more to talk
Yep.
about, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about.
There is. Before we get started on the show, which, by the way, just to give you guys an outline of what we're going to talk about tonight in the show, I say tonight, we're recording this on Wednesday night. We're going to talk a little bit about West Virginia spring practice, which is kicked up, and maybe talk a little bit about the press conferences that have happened so far. We'll talk a little bit about the Chad Scott situation. Wren Baker today put out a letter to West Virginia Mountaineer fans. We're going to talk about that and what it means. And then we'll talk a little bit of West Virginia hoops at the end. And, of course, anything else that comes to mind. But before we start having those conversations, I have to give a quick shout-out to my channel sponsor here. So we'll be back in a few seconds, about 35, 40 seconds. Since 1931, the attorneys at Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner have been the voice for victims who have suffered serious injury or death. They have a fierce passion for truth and justice and a sincere compassion for those who have been wronged by others. Whether you have been in a car accident or fighting with an insurance company, or you or a loved one has suffered serious injury or death due to medical negligence, we will ensure your voice is heard loud and clear. Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner will ensure there is justice for all West Virginians because we are your lawyer, your voice. Visit us at yourlawyeryourvoice.com. We thank you for being patient, letting us get through the housekeeping. I have to give a shout out to our guys over at Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner, attorneys at law. But anyway, let's go ahead and dive right into the first topic that we're going to talk about, and that's spring camp. Spring camp has kicked off for West Virginia, for Coach Rod, for the team, and he said a couple interesting press conferences. Do you have any? And of course, Zach Alley also had a press conference last week before they kicked off spring camp. What have been your takeaways so far from those press conferences that you've heard?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a ton. I think the biggest thing that jumped out to me was, and I want to be careful how I frame this because we're not going to turn this into a Neil Brown bash session.
Right.
But for me, it's just the differences between Neil Brown and Rich Rodriguez. Maybe it's their demeanor. Maybe it's their tone. Maybe it's their demand. And it just seems that Rich Rodriguez, it came across to me as he demanded a lot, even though it's early. He's going to be very demanding of these guys. And the other thought that came to my mind is, boy, he just drives competitiveness. And he talked about if there was that clip that if he's keeping score, he's competitive about it,
Yeah.
And it I guess I should have started by saying it almost really became surreal to me to see him actually at the podium, right? Like
Yep.
we've talked about it. We know he's the head coach. He's been there for a little bit. I mean, this isn't breaking news. We've seen the press conferences. We've seen him at basketball games. But it really kind of hits you when you see him there at the podium in a press conference talking and kind of breaking it down. And so it was good to see him back. To me, it was the difference in just what we have been seeing the last several years under Neil Brown and Rich Rod. But he just talked about competitiveness. I did watch your show about, did he kind of leak a little bit of, I don't know, a panic maybe was the right word that you used. Just kind of laying the foundation of just maybe some concern about the depth chart. And I think that's possible, but I think it was more just honesty about
Yeah.
where the situation is. And I think, again, going back to the past where we have just talked and we've heard the previous staff talk about, players have improved this. It was just positive, 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 and that's good. But it was nice to see Rodriguez just pretty much lay a blank slate out there and say this could be an area where might be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was one thing. I also thought it was kind of funny that he's as blunt gets.
He is, isn't he?
And he obviously wasn't a huge fan of some things that happened in prior years, and some made jokes about watching game film until he got sick and threw up. And I feel like that's some things we've done on this show a couple times when we did the same. And so it's just honestly, it's just kind of refreshing, and we're making kind of light of it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's refreshing to see him back in the saddle and just been just really direct. And point blank about what he sees about how things have been and where he wants to take it.
Yep. I agree 100%. And I was really impressed with, like you talking about, his bluntness. I like that. It's obviously more fun. It's more entertaining to watch it, to be honest with you, and listen to it when they're that blunt, and they kind of give you some sound bites, right? Especially if you're a content creator or a journalist or whatever. But I'm like you, it was surreal at first. It's like I could not wrap that first press conference. I spent the whole time thinking, is this real?
Yeah.
Is this a dream? Like it just seems so weird, man. But I love it in a good way. But and then of course after I got through the first one, now it's kind of normal, right? It's starting to feel normal. You know what I mean? Like the nostalgia I think is starting to wear off a little bit over time, and it's going to be he's just our football coach, right? But I really like the comment he made about I'm not here for nostalgia reasons. I'm here to win. I love that comment. He talked about how the guys he hired, like Pat White, Noel Devine, people like that, they weren't hired for nostalgia reasons. They were hired because they can help us win. And I love the fact that he pointed that out. I was really impressed with Zach Alley and his energy. Some Oklahoma people I had talked to after he made the move to West Virginia talked about how people used to call him like Little Brent or Mini Brent or something like that because he sounds like Brent Venables, and man, he does.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I actually thought he sounded a little bit. If you took Bob Stoops and Brent Venables and mixed them together, you get Zach Alley. He has his voice sounds like Bob Stoops to me, like the tone and everything.
Yeah.
But he's got that Brent Venables energy. And he talked about playing to a standard. I mean, I've heard Brent Venables say that in almost every press conference he's ever done. It's like that's his mantra, and you can tell Zach Alley has picked that up. I love the fact he's going to be aggressive. I love the fact that he's going to mix things up, but at the same time, make it easy for the players to understand. And from everything I've talked to, that's his strength is he can teach the defense in a way that the players understand it, and they don't get confused, and they don't have to think a lot. But speaking of that, did you catch the comment Rich Rod made in his last press conference that he said that he had to tell Zach to slow down because he was trying to implement too many exotic blitzes in one practice?
Yeah. I thought that was funny too. Yeah, and I was kind of taking in what you were saying, and one thing that just kind of came to my mind is, and it maybe sounds a little cliche, but they are true after listening to them. Hard edge.
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally where it comes from. They're demanding. They're not going to settle. And I can't appreciate the fact that Rich Rodriguez, and you just touched on it, go all the way back to his press conference. He has got out in front of the nostalgia part of it and has said, they certainly are not bringing me back because I went to school here, because I grew up here, because I won games X amount of years ago. He has come right out and said, they have brought me back here because they think I can win football games.
Mm-hmm.
And I can too, because that's been a hot debate on social media. Is some of these returning players, old former players, coming back for nostalgia reasons. And I don't believe Rich Rodriguez would do that because I don't think he accept that standard for himself.
Correct.
Zach Alley, I mean, he's a ball of fire. He's energy. It's something that I've enjoyed listening to him. I think we're both really excited to see what he can do with this defense. I think they're going to play fast. They're going to be quick. They're going to be a little bit more physical. And let's face it, Coos, if there was an area on this football team that needed revamped, and we've beaten that drum a million times, it's a defense. So
yeah,
I feel like on the surface thus far, he's the right man for the job, and I can't wait to see what he does.
Yep, agreed. I don't really. I'm trying to think if there's any other hot. Oh, quarterback. I wanted to touch on the quarterback situation real quick. Uh, I have been pretty impressed, or taken aback, maybe is the right way to say it. When they ask him about the quarterbacks, he seems to light up a little bit. Have you noticed that?
He does. And, one rule of thumb for me is I usually don't buy into a lot of coaches' hype, especially preseason.
Right.
Um, but when Rich Rodriguez talks quarterbacks, I kind of start to listen. And yeah, I mean, he gets a little grin on his face when he starts talking about quarterback. And that's a position where I can appreciate the battle, because I don't think Nico is taking this as it's his job,
Right.
that it's just going to be given because he decided to stay because he was there previously. Um, I think there's going to be some serious competitiveness there, and let the best man win. And that's going to be an interesting battle. And I trust Rich Rod's evaluation of who should get the job.
I do too. I mean, I find myself, somewhat quietly rooting for Nico because of his loyalty, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, at the end of the day, I'm a West Virginia fan first, and I want whatever quarterback wins the job, I'll
Yeah.
support him 100%. And I do think Jalen Henderson, just from what I've seen on his highlights and everything, I do think he has the makings of a really good quarterback. And I even think Max Brown has the potential to be really good, despite, when you look at his statistics, it doesn't look super great, but that kid can flat out throw a football, man. He's got arm talent for days. If he can get it right up here, he can be really
Yeah.
good. And of course,
Yeah.
I'm excited about Khalil Wilkins, Scotty Fox. I'm excited about the whole room, really. And I just, and when you look at Rich Rod's track record with quarterbacks, I have no doubt he's going to make the right decision. I mean, I trust his decision, and I think he'll have two or three guys who are probably good enough to win games by the time we get to August.
Yeah, and you're going to need two or three of those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, if history repeats itself during a long, rugged season, injuries happen, and so you're going to need more than just one. And so I think deep down, everybody probably agrees with you. There's that part of you that says, Nico gave everything he had, even during the Neil Brown era, never complained. Maybe he thought he should play more, never complained. When he came in, he performed pretty well,
Hmm.
always kept fighting, was always a great teammate, could have went anywhere he wanted to. I mean, I'm sure a ton of offers would have come in the portal, but he stayed. And so deep down, you're probably thinking, I'd like to see him get this job. If he's the best man for it, he'll get it.
Yep. Agreed. Agreed. All right, let's go ahead and jump ahead to our next topic, and that is a little Chad Scott conversation. Chad Scott obviously left West Virginia to take the same position at Texas, and in honor of that, I got a little. Yeah, we hated to see Chad Scott
Yeah.
leave, but no. In all seriousness, again, track record. You look at Rich Rod's track record. I have confidence he'll hire a good running backs coach. Uh, there's some fear that Jaheim White might leave, but again, Rich Rod's track record with running backs, I just think we'll have a good running game. I do want Jaheim to stay, obviously, because I do think he can be an all-time great running back at West Virginia. To be honest, I think he's that talented, and I think he's that good of a fit for what Rich Rod wants to do. But at the end of the day, man, I'm happy for Chad Scott. I think it was one of those situations he probably couldn't pass it. He's going to go to a team that probably has a chance to play for the college football playoff
Yeah.
every year. It's a great resume builder for him if he ever wants to be a head coach or an offensive coordinator somewhere. No hate for me whatsoever for Chad Scott taking that job. But at the same time, I trust Rich Rod to bring in somebody who can do the job. So, what are your initial thoughts on it?
Yeah, let me ask you a question, Kuz, and I'm gonna preface it by saying I mean this 100% no disrespect to Chad Scott. Am I the only one that's not even remotely concerned about losing a position coach? I mean, I just I can't buy into it. It bothers me that I feel like it's going to be detrimental to the team. Um, again, and I don't mean that disrespectful to Chad Scott. I just kind of for the points that you laid out, it's a position where I trust. I trust that Rich Rod's going to be able to replace him. I do not want Jaheim White to leave. But at the same token, just as much as we trust Rich Rodriguez to be able to evaluate quarterbacks and recruit the positions, I think we feel the same way about running back as well. So while I say that, I'm not wanting Jaheim to go anywhere because I think he can be dynamic in this offense.
Mhm.
I can't bring myself to be too upset about Chad Scott leaving. Doesn't mean he's not a good person. Doesn't mean he's not a good coach. Doesn't mean that I don't think he can help this football team. But I also think that at the end of the day, he's a running backs coach. Um, and I trust Rich Rodriguez can replace him. And so not too upset about it. I think the interesting question now is where does Rich Rodriguez
Mhm.
go? There's been some whispers out there. Well, even Rich Rod has even noted that we're going to find out probably sooner rather than later.
Yep.
And he has given no indication that he's concerned at all about filling that position. So interesting to see where he goes with it. But again, I want to be clear. I mean that with no ill will towards Chad Scott. I just can't bring myself to be too upset with him leaving. And I know Blaine Stewart's on staff, but there is a portion of people that wanted to cut all ties from the previous staff.
Mhm.
Um, and I know there's still one left. But I'm not too worried about Coach Scott leaving.
Yep. And I share that sentiment again. And like you said, it's nothing against him. It's just it's a position that Rich Rod's always excelled at. He's going to have his hands all over the offense anyway. You've got experienced coaches in that room, on the offensive side of the ball, like Travis Trickett. Yes, he's not really coached running backs, but he's been an offensive coordinator before, so I'm sure he's does have some experience coaching running backs. You've got Pat White, who's coached running backs. You have Noel Devine, who's played running back. He's the assistant running backs coach. I just feel like there's enough experience on that staff, especially with
Yeah,
Coach Rod himself, that they'll be fine. And I trust, he said the phone's been ringing off the hook with people wanting the job,
yeah.
which kind of segues into the next part of the conversation. What do you think they'll hire somebody internally or shift roles around somehow to fill it internally? Or do you think he'll go from outside and bring somebody in? What are your thoughts on that?
So I feel like with everybody already in place at their titles or positions, I think it's somewhere. I think he'll go outside. Say I don't have I just a hunch. I think he'll kind of go outside, and in a world now to where you could add to the staff and just give them a assistant to the head coach or senior offensive analyst or whatever the title may be. The position's covered, the offense especially.
Yeah.
Um, get the gut feeling he may go outside. No inside
Yeah.
information there, just a feeling that I get. But again, I'm not trying to put so much weight on Rich Rod because trust me, I do think maybe he can make a wrong decision. I know everything I said is I trust Rich Rod. I trust Rich Rod. Um, but if he feels that he's got a better candidate outside, I think that's where he'll go.
Yeah.
Um, so it's just a hunch that I think that could be what he looks at.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think he'll do that too. And let's face it, Chad Scott leaving frees up about
Yeah, yeah,
$800,000 worth of money. Now, that being said, if you look at the flip, they've hired a lot more coaches than the previous staff had, so
yeah.
they're way above and
Well,
beyond what they
they
paid
went
in the
over.
past.
Yeah, they went
Yeah.
over.
So, that you could look at it and say, well, why don't they just promote from within so that they can save that money, right? But uh, obviously, somebody somewhere has given him the okay in the budget to do that. So I look for them to bring in a coach. You won't have to pay him $700,000. You can pay him a couple of $100,000, maybe 300,000-400,000, whatever, and save
Yeah,
yourself a few $100,000 in the process of what you had budgeted, and probably still get a really good coach. Maybe somebody like Rod McDowell, who coached with him at Marshall. Coached with him at Jacksonville State, who's now at Marshall. Just one name that comes to mind. But I'm sure there are a lot of good candidates out there. Maybe even some that have no connection as far as to him and his coaching past or to West Virginia, but somebody that's just in the coaching circles that he's Rich Rod's been around a long
yeah,
time. I'm sure he knows most of the good coaches by now. So I think he'll make the right choice.
Yep, I agree. And I just kind of reiterate, it's a position where I feel comfortable at. And so I think that the position right now has already been handled internally. And so it opens up a plethora of options, what you want to do. And we just have to trust that he's been honest with us when he says the phone's ringing off the hook, agents are calling, and people want to be here. And I think it's something we'll probably see wrapped up here within the next week or so.
Yep. Agreed. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next topic, which is Wren Baker's letter to Mountaineer Nation. Before we do that, though, I do want to remind everybody you can find Jonathan on X at Jonathan K. Martin. It's Jonathan K. Martin, so it's Jonathan with no H. Find him on X. He's always posting over there. Puts a lot of cool stuff out there. And of course, you can find me at Coos206, and you can find our channel. We have an account, a Twitter account for this show. It's not, we're not active over there enough. We need to improve on that, but it's at GB breakdown _ if you want to reach out to the show and interact with us there. And of course, please subscribe to the channel if you're watching on YouTube. And for those listening on podcast, please give us a 5-star review if you think we earned it. Let's go ahead and talk about Wren Baker's letter to Mountaineer Nation. And for those of you who may not be aware, I'm going to go ahead and share this with everybody and kind of read it. And then Jonathan and I will give our thoughts. It says, oops, hold on. Technical difficulty. Dear Mountaineer Nation, as we transition into the spring sports season, I want to provide an update on our position within the evolving landscape of collegiate athletics and underscore the critical role revenue generation plays in ensuring our department remains among the nation's elite. Collegiate athletics is undergoing the most transformational period in its history, driven by unprecedented changes in governance, conference realignment, name, image, and likeness opportunities, and the evolving financial landscape. As we adapt to these shifts, the need for innovation, strategic planning, and sustainable revenue generation has never been greater. The House versus NCAA case has the potential to reshape the financial model of collegiate athletics by paving the way for revenue sharing with student athletes. If implemented, this shift would require WVU athletics to rethink its budget, as funds previously allocated to operations, facilities, and other areas may need to be redirected to compensate athletes. To navigate this, we must explore new revenue streams. I think that's the key. New revenue streams and ways to grow our current revenue while managing our costs effectively. We are actively preparing for these changes and working closely with the university to ensure long-term relevancy and success. In the coming weeks and months, we will share key initiatives with you aimed at addressing a $20 million increase in expenditures. These efforts are critical in sustaining our spot in the national landscape and growing WVU athletics. Your ongoing support and involvement will play a vital role as we move forward in this important endeavor. As we navigate these future financial challenges, we are committed to sustaining competitive excellence among our 18 varsity sports programs. Your continued support in these areas will help propel WVU athletics forward. And he lists ways we can help by purchasing season tickets, becoming a member of the Mountaineer Athletic Club, or market-based name, image, and likeness support for student athletes. He closes by saying, changing college athletics is happening, and we will keep you informed. I sincerely thank you once again for your commitment. Your unwavering loyalty, generosity, and support are the foundation of our storied past and bright future. Let's go. Signed, Wren Baker. So, Jonathan, what are your initial thoughts on that letter from Mr. Baker?
My first thought is, because if you got any extra cash in that wallet, go ahead and get it out.
Yeah.
Because you're about to pay up.
Yep.
Now, I'll pause for a second. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But when I read that letter, and you and I are both in business, you and I both to a certain degree are in finance. Mm-hmm. We do money. When I read that letter, it screams to me, we need more money. So let me back up just a little bit. First off, I don't think Wren Baker's a very intelligent individual. I don't think Wren Baker sends that letter if there's not something, and even admits it, something coming down the pipe pretty quick. There's a reason why that letter was put out today. It's changing. We know that. West Virginia is actively looking at ways to increase revenue. We know that. He acknowledged it. But I think that was very strategic to be placed out there today because something could happen pretty soon. Second thought, prepare to give. I don't know what the idea will be. I don't know what the thoughts and plans and strategies they have coming up with. But let's just be as honest as we can here. It's going to require West Virginia fans to pay more money. Maybe it was you today. I had a busy day. Maybe it was you. I saw somewhere somebody suggested that there could be a fee added on to tickets.
Mm-hmm.
If that wasn't you, I apologize.
I think I may have requoted somebody else's tweet, but
okay. I just happened to see that at a free moment today. That's something that I think other schools have kind of floated an idea around. So if you're paying $80 for a ticket, you could pay an extra $20 charge on it. Having said all that, he is extremely accurate that this is where it's headed. If you want to compete, you're going to have to do these things. Nobody wants to give more necessarily. Everything's tight. It's a tough economy. We get it. But if you want to win and you want to be successful, this is where we're at. And it's going to require money.
Yep. I agree. And I'm like you. It's a necessity. I mean, right. As fans, what do we want? We want our team to compete. We want our team to be able to win, compete for conference titles, college football playoff spots, those types of things. There's no way West Virginia can do that without spending money. I mean, you've got the House settlement case looming. If that gets is it ratified? Is that the right word? If it gets approved, it's an extra $20 million that he mentioned in there that West Virginia right now don't have. So they have got to find it, right? He talked about shifting money from one part, one bucket to another, essentially. But you got to do more than that, right? You've got to come up with new revenue streams, which you mentioned.
Yep.
Probably ticket prices are going to go up. You talked about the fees. Wouldn't be surprised if, heck, we might even see higher prices at the concession stands. I don't know. I'm just throwing out different things here. Don't be surprised if you start at some point might start seeing some corporate logos on the field. Don't be surprised if you start seeing more corporate logos inside the stadium. I mean, there are so many different things this could lead to. And at the end of the day, I know some people don't like all that stuff, and none of us love it. But at the end of the day, it is the world we live in today, and West Virginia has got to do that to compete. So whatever they got to do to compete outside of sit on their soul, I'm cool with it, man. If you got to get a logo on the field, put a logo on the field. I don't care. If you got to put logos on the Coliseum gym floor, put a logo on the Coliseum floor. I don't care. I'm cool with all of it as long as it helps West Virginia compete. And I just think that's where he's going with this. I think he's kind of laying the groundwork. I also think one part in there that I called on was working with the university. What's that mean? Well, right, are they going to ask the university for more help? I think so. One way I've read that they can do that is the way they handle scholarship money, for example. Right now, it's my understanding that out-of-state students, or see, I want to say this right. I think any student athlete who gets a scholarship, the athletic department has to reimburse the university for that scholarship, is my understanding. I think they're going to try to change it to where that only applies to out-of-state students or in-state students or something like that. There's going to be some changes to the scholarship, or they're going to ask for some help from the university in that regard. Again, I apologize for not having. I used to know that, and it's totally. I just can't remember the details, but things like that could be coming down the pipeline as well. That's why I think he threw in the fact that they're working with the university, because they try not to ask the university for a whole lot of help as far as additional funding. And let's face it, the university is facing some issues of their own, so they probably can't afford to right now. And they may even ask the state for some help. There's an NIL bill out there at the state of West Virginia is looking at passing. That might be beneficial, which I'm actually planning to do a whole separate show on. once I get more details. But there are some things that they can ask the state for help on, right, to help stay competitive as well. So there's going to be a lot of changes. We might see a lot of changes really fast, and like you alluded to, it might be coming sooner rather than later, because this House settlement, if it gets approved, it's going to kick in July 1st of this year.
Yeah.
So they have no time to waste with any of this.
And let's just be honest about it, because college athletics has taken the professional model essentially. I mean, it's basically professional sports, and you're already seeing corporate sponsors in NBA, Major League Baseball. I mean, watch NBA and see a logo on a jersey, see it on a hat, see it on a court, on a baseball field. And I think that was a good thought you had. Is that's potentially, when I read new revenue streams, my mind went exactly to where yours went. Are we going to see logos on jerseys on the field? Are we going to see it? Where will it stop? But it's going to be expensive. And fans might as well go ahead and prepare themselves for increased pricing. One of the first bulletin points there was season tickets. How's that going to look? So, but it has to be done in this landscape if you want to compete.
Yeah.
If you want to compete, it has to be done. And you and I agree on a lot. Sometimes we disagree on some stuff. This is one thing we completely agree on. It has to be done.
Yep.
It has to be. And we might see a Couz's Corner logo coming to a field near you.
Yeah,
I don't
wish.
know. I don't know what it's going to take, but I'm all in. If it means you remain competitive in the sports landscape today, it has to be done. And you're going to get some pushback. There's going to be a little resistance, but I think it has to be done.
Yep. Very fair, and I totally agree with you, man.
I think I'd go back to what I originally said. I think it was very strategic, because Wren's very smart.
Yeah.
He didn't just sit down, yesterday evening and write a letter and put it out today. I'm sure there's some things getting ready to come down. So you're probably not going to have to wait too long to find out some of these revenue streams and ideas, and how it's going to look moving forward.
I'm wondering if they'll do something at the spring game. I just thought of this. Not necessarily charge to get in, but will they have some things there for people to do or buy or participate in that cost money? Things like that. I mean, I'm sure they're trying to explore, multiple avenues here. Maybe they start holding more concerts and events at the Coliseum or at the stadium. You know what I mean? I mean, there are so many different things that they could probably do that they haven't done so far, that and things that they are doing that they can expand on, right?
And that's something we're going to get off on we're going to end up giving Wren ideas for him by the end of this show. But that's something that actually I think you've brought up before, is that there's so many good artists that are tied to West Virginia, that if you could somehow, get good concerts, take it from somebody that was just at a sold out concert. I know you attend them.
Yep, a lot. I'm a concert junkie.
You want to talk about making some money? Go to a concert. They're sold out, and they're selling a lot of stuff inside of there.
Can you imagine how much Country Roads Trust lager they could sell at a concert?
Have Brad Paisley come back and put a concert together at the Coliseum on a Friday night before a football game.
Yeah.
Or just name somebody that you could get to come in. And so that's a great revenue stream. And for all I know, Wren, if you're listening, that's a good idea, I think.
Maybe start making people pay to come on the Pat McAfee show or attend the Pat McAfee show on campus instead of letting everybody for free, right?
Yeah.
I'm just throwing out. I know that there's a lot of students right now that are throwing stuff at their screen. I don't want to pay for that, but no. I'm just brainstorming here. Wren will figure it out. I trust him. He's got, we got a new president coming in July that I think is going to be. By the way, that's not part of my agenda here, but just what are your quick thoughts on the president hire? If you've had a chance to do any research?
Yeah, haven't done a ton, but from what little bit, and ironically, we're talking athletics. Uh, his hire seems to be very good for athletics at West Virginia. Very invested in athletic programs. He's done really well
Mhm.
at Coastal Carolina in that department. And again, talked about this earlier, just on a different portion of West Virginia University. Breath of fresh air. It was kind of my initial thought. I'm looking forward to seeing him get in and get involved and
Yeah.
hear a little bit more from him. Kind of what the vision is there. Um, on the surface, seems like an excellent hire.
Yeah. I
Not
agree.
many people were leaving Myrtle Beach to come to West Virginia. It's generally the opposite.
Right. The
So that's
southernmost city in West Virginia.
yeah, yeah. So that's a little strange. It's usually the complete opposite, but yeah, on the surface, seems to be a really good person to fill that role, um, and breath of fresh air.
Yep. Jonathan, I want to do something I hadn't done in a while, and I just happened to look in my camera and see this. I had this helmet made not long ago, several months ago. Customized helmet. It says Kuz's Corner, has the year 21 because that's the year my podcast started. The Country Road stripe and the CC for Kuz's Corner, the Big 12 logo. I mean, it's really sharp. Even has the canary. Handling helmets. I think it's WV Football Helmet Guy on X, something like that. Hit him up if you want a really cool replica helmet. He can hook you up. And I wanted to give him a quick shout out. He's the one who I had him make that for me.
So I'm a huge helmet guy.
Are you?
I
Cool.
love helmets.
I didn't think I was, but I've kind of become one. Awesome.
Kind of a hard thing to see, but definitely hit your guy up. I love helmets, and I'll tell you, the mini helmets are awesome.
They are awesome. I've got, as you can see on my shelf behind me, I've got a couple. I've got
Yeah.
the Coal Rush one and the blue Country Roads one. Of course, I got the full size white Country Roads that was gifted to me by one of my awesome loyal VIP members and subscribers that I really appreciate. But yeah, I'm starting to become a helmet guy. I didn't think I would be,
Yeah.
but now I'm starting to collect Funko Pops and helmets.
Yeah, there you go. I love a good helmet, and the minis are easier to stack around
Absolutely.
into place, and
Hmm.
you obviously can put more. So, yeah, they're nice to have. So make sure you reach out to them.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I didn't. I've been meaning to do that, and I forget to do it some, but I wanted to make sure I did that real quick.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and move on, and let's talk some West Virginia hoops, baby. Huge win against TCU at home. We're recording this on Wednesday night. The game was last night, Tuesday, February 25th, 9 o'clock p.m. tip. So it was a late
Mhm.
game, but man, West Virginia came out to play, man. They won. They ended up winning by, I think, 18 points, something like that. If my memory serves me correctly. Just absolute stunning performance by Javon Small. Sincere Harris had himself a career night scoring the
Yeah.
basketball. What are your thoughts on West Virginia's big win over TCU?
Well, my first thought was 9 o'clock tip, and they were down 5-0 to start the game. And I thought
Yeah,
these 9 o'clock tips, they're just not it.
yeah,
Was it Arizona State earlier in the year was a 9 o'clock tip,
I
um,
think so.
and it was
Hmm.
it was ugly from the beginning. So my first thought, right out of the gate, when it was 5-0 TCU, here we go.
Yeah,
Just Kuz, it's just kind of the same thing. It's just they just continue to fight. Um, we've talked about it all year. This is a team that's a little depleted. I think they're tired. I think other teams are starting to kind of figure out some weaknesses. Um, you've seen Javon Small kind of being, I don't want to use the term shut down a little bit, but defenses have put a whole lot more emphasis on him and
hmm,
making other people. So last night was wonderful to see. You just at this point, if you're West Virginia, you just need to win games.
yep,
Um, I feel that their resume is good enough. No one win is going to be that one that just continues to skyrocket you. I think it just builds it, right?
right.
And so you're not going to all of a sudden jump to a 5 seed because you beat a TCU or maybe you beat a UCF or a Utah moving forward. But the resume is good enough to where now you're just ensuring yourself from off that bubble to
Yep.
therein, and you're just kind of playing for an 8 or 9 or 10 seed. But it was just good to win. It was good to win.
It was.
I had kind of tweeted that, I'm not a huge fan on the term must win, but the last couple games, especially at home,
Mhm.
Cincinnati and TCU, if there ever was one, those were it. Because just as much as I don't think you're going to help yourself, but I do think you can hurt yourself by
Correct.
losing those games. Um, and so now I think you're sitting at 17 wins. You're playing with a little bit of house money when you go to BYU late Saturday night. You want to talk about a complaint on a 9 o'clock tip? That's a 10 o'clock tip. Um,
Yeah. Wow.
so, but that's Texas Tech of last week, right? You're not going to hurt yourself if you lose on the road at BYU, but you can help yourself there. Um, and then Utah, even though that should be a win for West Virginia, you're on the road. You're back out west, staying out west. That's a tough place to play. Um, and then home against a UCF team that should win against at home. For me, when we go back to the early part of the season, when we talked about what's this team realistically look like, wins, losses, I just remind you, I think we both said, I don't know about 15. I think that's too low. I thought 20 was too high. So I said 17 or 18, and they're sitting at 17 wins. Now, I'm not that smart, right? They
Smarter
won.
than me because I said
Well,
15.
but they won some games that I didn't think they would win. They lost some games I didn't think they would lose. So I'm not that good. But I said 17 or 18, and they sit here with 3 left at 17 wins. I think realistically, I think if you get to 18, you're fine, and then you get into the Big 12 tournament. Let's see what happens. I think it was a couple weeks back. I said 19 makes you comfortable, 20 makes you sleep really good at night
Yeah.
getting into the NCAA tournament. I still feel that way a couple weeks later. Um, so you got the potential for 3 more. It's going to be a tough 3 games. If you can get 2 out of the 3, you're at 19. Um,
I
the
like that.
only,
I like the odds there.
yeah, yeah. If you get 1, you're at 18, and you're trying to get that 19th in the Big 12 tournament. That's where it gets a little nerve wracking. Um, but feel pretty good about this team.
Yeah. But what'll help them if they, right now they're at, according to the graphic last night, they're sitting at 9th place in the Big 12 conference,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
means they would have to play on that first day of the tournament. If they can get into the top 8 and get that bye in the first round of the Big 12 tournament, get that extra day of rest, I think for this team that would go a long way.
yeah.
Playing 3 straight days, much easier than playing 4 straight days,
Hmm.
especially for a team that has an 8-man rotation.
Yeah,
So I would really like to see them. And winning over TCU was a big deal in that because they're basically now tied with TCU with the same conference record. So
yeah.
that was big. If they can continue to win, it should vault them ahead of TCU because I would expect TCU to lose at least one more. But it's going to be tight. They're going to be sitting right around that 8, 9, 10 seed in the Big 12 tournament. But if they can get to that 8 number, I really like I like their chances of advancing a little better with that extra day of rest. But when you look at the game against TCU, Jonathan, I mean, they shot 51.9% from the floor, 42% from 3 with 11 made 3-pointers. Free throw shooting was not that great, 8 for 11, 72.7%. They out-rebounded TCU by 1. They had 17 assists, 10 steals, 6 blocks to the TCU's 1 block. I mean, they were just everywhere, man.
Yeah.
The one
They
negative was they did turn it over 13 times, which you'd like to see them clean that up. But I mean, outside of that, man, they pretty much won the game in points. They lost the points in the paint battle, but they pretty much won the game in almost every statistical category that matters and dominated it.
they did, and I'm going to tell you where it came from. Obviously, shot the ball well, but for me, what really jumped out against TCU was just the effort defensively.
Yep.
Because it was apparent. I joked about the 5-0 start, but after that, from the tip, this team was scrappy. They played hard. They've got to be sore this morning because they dove on the floor after loose balls
Yeah.
all night long. Heck, I thought DeVries was going to get down on. I mean,
Wasn't
you
that
know,
awesome?
He is. You talk about a breath of fresh air. He's in defensive stance. How could you not play defense for the guy?
Yeah, I love it, man.
And you've got a 6'11" Andre diving on the floor. Harris clapping, the biggest smile on your face you'll ever see, enjoying playing basketball,
Yeah, I
and
love it.
it's contagious. It's contagious,
Mhm.
and I think they take on the personality of their head coach and his guys that he has brought in that match. You want to talk about somebody that's done really well in the portal, not just because West Virginia's turned it around this year, but have you ever seen a coach go out in his first year and be able to get guys that fits his style? And you can't
That's
watch
remarkable.
this team. Yeah, and you can't watch this team and say they don't take on the identity of their head coach. I mean, they go hand in hand, and so that's refreshing to see, man. But they were on the ball defensively. They were active. The shots fell. The thing about this team, though, Kuz, is they can get in some slumps. They can be really hot or they can be really cold.
Mhm.
I think it was a couple against Cincinnati a couple games ago. Before they went on a monster run, they had missed like 18 of 19 shots, and then they went on like a 15-2 run. I mean, I'm going to ask you how that happens. I don't know how it happens.
I don't know.
um, but last night they were just they were on fire and some things clicked and the hustle was there, um, and so it was good to see you. That's one you did not want to lose at home.
Correct.
And but I completely agree with you. They're in a huge battle right now for that extra day of rest. Um, One team they're in a battle against, Kansas State, only has 7 wins, but they're playing uh, UCF tonight. UCF is late; they're winning that game late. UCF is,
Good.
so that could take one because Kansas State beat West Virginia this year. So the
Yeah.
further you could keep them down, another team you're competing with, Utah. You've beat them once, you get them again.
Yeah.
Um, you've got TCU. I'm not quite sure how that would look up. I want to grab my phone here real quick. There's a website, Kuz, you can go to. I don't know if you've ever been to it. It's this bball.nothing.net. Where have you seen this to where
I have not.
so you can go in and predict the games
Wow.
and it will calculate seedings for you.
Okay.
And I'll send you the link. And if we want to give that to everybody, I've seen it, so I'm sure a lot of people have, and it's really neat. So you can predict games, every Big 12 game from here on out, who you think will win, who you think will lose. And you can calculate seeds. Let me tell you
Awesome.
how confusing this is.
In the NCAA tournament or the Big 12 tournament?
The Big 12 tournament.
Gotcha.
I tinkered with this today for a little bit, and I'm more confused after tinkering with it than I was before. Let me just put it to you like this: West Virginia could be a 7, they could be a 10. It's unbelievable
Yeah.
what could happen. Um,
To be a
but
7, I would say they probably have to win out, right?
yeah,
Basically.
let's put it like this: if all favorites were to win, um, it had them at a. It's telling me that the schedule needs to update. I guess there's a game tonight, but uh, they had them with a bye. Now that's if all
Okay.
favorites win. I'll send you the link. It's
Yeah.
interesting to look at.
Yeah, but we know in this conference that's not going to happen.
It's
So,
not, and the scenarios are off the wall.
oh, I can imagine. With
Um,
16 teams, man, I mean, I don't even know. Golly, that would probably just give me a headache. But
it's
I do want to go
confusing.
check it out, though. That's pretty cool.
It's confusing, and I've used it before for football and other basketball stuff as well, and it's accurate. So something to look at.
Okay, I'll check it out. I appreciate that. bball.nothing.net.
bball dot not nothing.net. So not nothing.net. I'll
Oh,
send a
not
link to it.
nothing.net. Oh, I
Not
got you.
nothing.net.
Okay, cool. Cool. But yeah, just back to the game real quick. The individual performances, though, I mean, I was really impressed. Obviously, with Javon, he did his thing right. Had 23 points, 10 assists, had a double double. I I don't know if you caught the post game press conference, but he criticized himself. That's one thing I like about him, man. He's never going to get too high on himself.
Yeah.
He said I almost had a triple double with too many turnovers. He did have 6 turnovers in the game, and that's a lot for him.
Yeah.
But the fact he acknowledged that and didn't want to talk about, you know, anything else, That shows you the type of competitor he is and why he's so good, right?
Yep.
But he had 23 points, 5 rebounds, 10 assists, a steal. Great night for him. You know, who was the other player? Oh, Sincere Harris, man. We talked about him having a career night with 13 points. Also had 5 rebounds, 2 block shots, 2 steals. And
Yeah.
his on the ball defense was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, he just was all over the guy he was guarding all night long. And like you said, he was having fun out there playing defense. He loves to play defense.
Yep.
He's turning in. I saw somebody on X today, and I wish I could give him credit, but I don't remember who it was. Said he might be this year's Gabe Osaboyan. He's
Yep.
turning into this team's Gabe Osaboyan, and I thought that is a great comparison
Mm-hmm.
because he's going to do whatever it takes to win, whether it's defense. He's going to do the dirty work. He doesn't care, and he's going to love every minute of it. And that, back to what you said, that embodies what Darren DeVries wants in his players. That is the exact personality of the coach. And, you know, Eduardo Andre, you talked about him diving on the floor. He only had 4 points, but he had 2 block shots.
Yeah.
KJ Tenner. This is a player that I was defending on Twitter the other day. They were talking, or in a group chat. I don't remember where I was, but they were talking about, you know, that he wasn't very good. I'm like, you guys don't understand. He don't shoot the ball all that great. Number one, he don't shoot it a lot anyway because he's so unselfish. But his defensive presence, he was in the game for 11 minutes and had 3 steals.
Yeah.
And he gets his hands on, a lot of times he don't get steals, but he gets his hands on balls. He's poking the ball away. He has very quick hands. His hand-eye coordination is off the charts. He's able to get his hands in there and knock balls away and poke balls away from guys and just be a nuisance, right? And I just really thought he played a really good game. And then Joseph Yesufu had another big game, shooting 4 of 8 from 3, knocking down some huge shots, dealing with cramps all game, and was still able to score 14 points and pull down 6 rebounds. He's like 6 foot tall, and he pulled down 6 rebounds. Just flat out effort is all that is right there. And so those are really the key performances of the night. I mean, it was a good team win. Amani Hansberry, you know, put up 9 points, 5 boards, but he had some of those boards he pulled down were really tough.
Yeah.
He was boxing his guy out, you know, was able to get up and get the rebound and with effort and putting a body on somebody. I mean, just,
and you know,
all around good team win.
One thing about Hansberry too, Coos, is he's undersized at the position that he's playing.
Yeah.
So you have to give him credit. Every night he goes out there, he's playing against somebody that's a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger, and continues the battle. But I got to tell you, I still think I'm bullish on this team in the NCAA tournament if they do in fact get in. I think they're a team that can win a game or two.
I am too.
They have, and here's why. They got one good scorer. They got one really good scorer, and they play tough physical defense, and that wins basketball games. You need the one guy at least with an identity about him that can go out and be that dog and get you points. They have that, and this team is going to fight. They're going to be scrappy. They're going to play hard. Everything you saw in that TCU game, they're going to do. Now, the hard part is going to be if you get that 8 or 9 seed and you've got to play a Houston, you've got to play a Duke, you've got to play an Auburn in the second round. Do you have the horses depth-wise to do that? But I believe even in the Big 12 and NCAA tournament, this is a basketball team that can make a serious run.
Yeah, well,
they can win games.
What do they always say about March Madness? It's all about guard play.
Yep.
I would put Javon Small against any guard in the country right now, the way he's playing.
Yep.
I mean, Jonathan, he played 39 out of 40 minutes in that game.
Yep.
Shot 8 of 16 from the floor and 6 of 11 from 3.
Yep.
And yeah, he had 6 turnovers, but my gosh, he had the ball in his hands on every possession for the entire game. So just about. So, I mean, yeah, he's going to have some turnovers, but they're such a hard team to prepare for because of the way they play defense. I think that, you know, it's not like the West Virginia where but they have that same physicality to them. When they're fully locked in, they're probably as good defensively as that West Virginia team was. They just don't do it full court. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But man, when they're locked in, they are locked in, and they are hard to score on.
Yep.
Really hard to score on.
Yep.
So
I agree.
And defense travels, and if you play defense the way they do, they're going to be able to compete with about anybody if they're playing the way they are capable of playing. or at
And I
least
think
most teams anyway. Maybe not everybody, but most teams.
and I think we saw the importance last night again of Javon Small being able to score basketball.
Yep.
Again, he is unbelievably talented, but defenses, we got to give credit to the other teams too.
Yeah.
And defenses have you've started to see a shift. They've put that 6'5", 6'6", even a 6'7" guy that's long, that's athletic. They've really made a concentrated effort to take him out of the game. And not trying to sound obvious here, but we saw last night once again the importance of him being able to score the basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, if Javon Small goes out and gets 8, 10, 11 points, it's going to be a long night for West Virginia.
Yep.
But if you can have him go out and get that 20 plus, 18 points, 20 plus points, we saw once again last night just how important his scoring of the basketball is to the success of this team.
Yep. Absolutely. You nailed it. Hit the nail on the head, man. Sure did. And by the way, real quick, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but just to show you how good the defensive performance was by West Virginia, A, they held TCU to 55 total points. B, they only had one guy in double digits, and that was a bench player named Trezarian White, who had 11 points, 4 rebounds. Their next leading scorer, they had a couple guys with 9. They had Jace Posey and Brendan Wenzel had 9. I mean,
Wow.
that's phenomenal. Can't beat it. And they shot 39% from the floor overall as a team. So really, really good defensive performance by West Virginia. Cannot be. And I want to talk about that. Darren DeVries getting so excited running out on the court and grabbing Andre after he dove on the floor. As somebody who's coached at a lower level, obviously, but who has coached, I coached girls in AAU ball, but the most excited moments for me in a game was when my players did that kind of stuff.
Yep.
It makes you so proud as a coach to know your team is bought in and are willing to do that for you and your staff and your teammates. It is that's why it made me smile, because I could kind of relate to it. Again, I've not coached at that level and never will, but coaching's coaching. Want your players are buying in, they're giving it everything they've got. And at the end of the day, as a coach, that's really the most you can ask of your players.
Yep.
They're going to miss shots. They're going to have nights where they don't play as well, but you want that kind of effort. And that is when you're the most proud of your team. And the fact that Coach DeVries shows that kind of excitement for those types of moments, to me, just solidifies he's the right guy for the job right now in Morgantown.
Yep. I completely agree. It's great. And you could see, that's what I said earlier. It's hard to believe that he was able to get those guys so early on and identify these are the guys we want for our culture.
Yep.
Because they are the identity of him. And what an excellent job for him, and kudos to the players. We talk about 9 o'clock tips. It's late. We're tired. Listen, these guys are the same way. They know it's late, and to go out and give that effort in that basketball game certainly was nice to see.
It was. And let's just hope, to close this thing out, let's just hope the football players that Coach Rod got in the portal also have the same culture buy-in and the same connection, so to speak, to the culture that Coach DeVries is. Now, it's tougher in football because there's a lot more players. I get it. But let's just hope there's at least close to the same level, because if they are, I think they could have a successful year.
They could. And Kuz, I want to say this real quick too while we're on the topic. I won't take much time on it, but while we're on the topic of hoops, we're recording this on a Wednesday night. I want to give a huge shout out. We've done this a couple times, but I want to give a shout out to the women's basketball team.
Yes.
So we're recording on a Wednesday night. They just beat Utah, a 21-6 Utah team, 75-46 at home. This basketball team is 16-0 at home this year. Awesome. 16-0, ranked number 18th in the country, 12-5 in the conference. They're now 21-7. You want to talk about a coach that gets players to play hard, to play with effort. The job that Coach Kellogg has done at West Virginia since he's been here is phenomenal. I was telling you off camera, my wife and I took our family to Morgantown a couple weeks ago. We were there for the Cincinnati game. That is an unbelievable experience. These ladies deserve our attention. They play hard. They compete. And what he has done there is exceptional. It's only going to get better. I hope he stays forever. I hope DeVries stays forever. But I want to give the ladies of West Virginia basketball a compliment. 16-0 at home is unbelievable.
It is.
And 21 games, winning 21 games this year, phenomenal. Those ladies play hard. They play really hard and are fun to watch. So hopefully a lot of people are tuning in. And as we get to NCAA tournament coming up, you want to talk about a tough out? Those girls are going to be a tough
Well,
out.
you saw, hey, they gave Iowa everything they can handle last year.
Everything.
And to be honest with you, for some absolutely horrendous calls in that game, they might have won.
Yep. And I know people are going to point to their road record. But just as much as the Big 12 is tough in men's basketball, it's equally as tough in women's basketball. Iowa State's good, TCU's good, Baylor's good, Kansas State is good, Utah's good. I mean, all these schools are really good in the Big 12 in women's basketball. So I didn't want to end the show without saying that.
I appreciate you doing that.
They deserve our props on that. They've had an amazing season. That entire team, those guards, they're annoying if you're playing against them. They do not leave you alone. They're in your face. We got to witness it firsthand a couple weeks ago. Really enjoyed our time up there watching them. And so kudos to the West Virginia women's basketball team and that entire staff. You guys are doing awesome.
Yep, absolutely. We're proud of those ladies, and I can't wait to watch them when March Madness starts. But thank you for doing that shout out. I actually was going to do that, but I wasn't sure where the game stood, so I appreciate you looking that up for me. Again, everybody, please check us out on X. I'm at Coos206. He's at Jonathan K. Martin. It's Jonathan without an H in the front. We're on. Also, you can interact with the show at GB Breakdown _. Like the video, please, if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on podcast, please hit the 5-star review. Please comment on the video as well. All that stuff helps the algorithm and helps push our content out. We hope to be back next week. I haven't looked at the basketball schedule, but we hope to be back hopefully next week. If not, we'll be back with episode 27 very soon. But we appreciate you guys and gals tuning into this show. Until the next time, hope the rest of your day's top shelf. Go Mountaineers, stay blessed, and Q Country Roads.